The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing quarterly reports for my hospitality empire. Isabella Martinez, my sister Sophia's wedding planner, had that tone in her voice, the one that said she was about to ruin someone's day. "Listen, honey," Isabella began, her voice dripping with condescension. "I know this is last minute, but the Grandview estate is demanding an additional $50,000 for Saturday's wedding. Something about premium lighting packages and enhanced security." I set down my coffee and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows of my downtown penthouse. 23 floors below, the city bustled with morning traffic, completely unaware that the woman they might dismiss as Sophia's quiet little sister controlled a $2.8 billion hospitality empire spanning 3 states. "50,000 seems steep," I said calmly. "Have you spoken directly with the owner?" Isabella's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "Honey, you can't afford this place. The Grandview estate costs more per hour than most people make in a month. Maybe suggest to your sister that she scale back her expectations? There are plenty of nice community centers that would work just fine for your family's budget." I felt that familiar calm settle over me, the same feeling I got during hostile takeover negotiations. "Actually, Isabella, why don't you tell the owner to call me directly? I'd like to discuss this personally." "Sweetie," she said, her voice now openly mocking, "the owner of Grandview Estate doesn't take calls from random family members. This isn't some backyard barbecue venue. We're talking about the most exclusive wedding destination in the state. Now, can you cover the $50,000 or not?" "I'll handle it," I said simply and hung up. 20 minutes later my phone rang. The caller ID showed Grandview Estate Management, which was actually the direct line to my property management company. "Miss Thompson," came the familiar voice of Marcus Reynolds, my head of operations. "I just got the strangest call from a wedding planner named Isabella Martinez. She's claiming we're demanding an additional $50,000 for the Carmichael Sophia Thompson wedding this Saturday." I told her there must be some mistake, but she insisted and became quite rude when I asked to speak with the family directly. I leaned back in my leather chair, a smile playing at my lips. What exactly did she say? She told me, and I quote, "The family can't afford your ridiculous upcharges, but they're desperate enough to try." She also mentioned something about the bride's sister being completely out of her depth, trying to negotiate with people like us. The irony wasn't lost on me. 3 years ago, when I'd quietly purchased the Grandview estate along with 15 other luxury venues across the region, I'd kept the acquisition under my holding company's name. Even my own family had no idea that their struggling daughter and sister, the one who drove a 10-year-old Honda and lived in a modest apartment, owned the very venue where Sophia was planning her dream wedding. "Marcus," I said, "please call Ms. Martinez back. Tell her that due to the confusion, we're implementing our premium conflict resolution protocol." "Which protocol would that be, Ms. Thompson?" "The one where we require all additional charges to be approved directly by the ownership group. Schedule a meeting for this afternoon at 2 p.m. And Marcus, make sure you mention that the owner will be attending personally." After hanging up, I called my sister. Sophia answered on the second ring, her voice tight with stress. "Emma, thank God. Isabella just called me freaking out about some additional costs. She says we need $50,000 more or they'll cancel the wedding. I don't know what to do. Mom and Dad already think we're overspending, and David's parents have been making comments about us being financially irresponsible." My heart ached hearing the worry in Sophia's voice. She'd been planning this wedding for 18 months, working double shifts at the marketing firm to save every penny. Meanwhile, our parents had made it clear they thought the Grandview estate was above our station, and that Sophia should have chosen something more practical. "Don't worry," I told her. "I'm handling it. Emma, you don't understand. This isn't like when we were kids and you'd give me your allowance money. $50,000 is real money. Isabella says the owner is some kind of billionaire who doesn't care about small clients like us. If only she knew. Trust me, sophomore. Your wedding is going to be perfect." At 1:45 p.m., I arrived at the Grandview estate in my Honda, parking next to Isabella's gleaming BMW and what I assumed was Sophia's car. The estate was one of my favorite properties, a restored 1920s mansion set on 40 acres of manicured gardens, with crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and enough old-world elegance to make any bride feel like royalty. I found Isabella in the main ballroom, gesticulating wildly while talking on her phone. She wore a designer suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and her perfectly manicured nails clicked against her tablet as she spoke. "No, I don't care what the owner says," she was saying. "These people are clearly out of their league. Maybe we should suggest they find a venue more suited to their budget. I have 3 other weddings this month that could pay double." Sophia sat in one of the antique chairs, looking small and defeated. She'd worn her best dress, a simple navy blue number from Target that she'd bought specifically for wedding-related meetings. Her hands were folded in her lap and I could see she'd been crying. "Isabella," I called out, walking across the marble floor. She turned, her face immediately shifting to an expression of barely concealed annoyance. "You must be the sister. Listen, honey, we really need to discuss realistic options for your family. This venue might be a bit ambitious." "Actually," I said, checking my watch, "I'm here for the 2 p.m. meeting with the owner." Isabella's laugh was sharp. "Sweetie, that meeting is for serious clients only. Why don't you take your sister to get some coffee while the adults handle business?" Before I could respond, Marcus appeared in the doorway. "Ms. Martinez? The owner is ready to see you now." Isabella smoothed her suit and grabbed her tablet. "Finally, someone who understands the hospitality business." "Actually," Marcus said, his voice carefully neutral, "the owner specifically requested that all parties involved in Saturday's wedding be present for this discussion." Isabella looked confused. "All parties? I suppose the bride should be here, but surely we don't need." "Everyone," Marcus said firmly, "including Ms. Emma Thompson." We followed Marcus to the estate's private office, a room I'd had restored to its original 1920s grandeur, complete with a massive oak desk, leather-bound books, and windows overlooking the garden where Sophia would be married in 4 days. Isabella took the chair across from the desk, her posture confident and businesslike. Sophia sat beside her, still looking nervous. I took the 3rd chair, noting how Isabella had positioned herself to literally turn her back to me. "Now then," Isabella began, "I appreciate you taking the time to meet with us personally, Mr. "Actually," Marcus said, "I'm not the owner. I'm the operations manager. The owner will be with us momentarily." Isabella checked her watch impatiently. "I do hope we can resolve this quickly. I have other clients to attend to, and frankly, this situation has already taken up far more of my time than it should have." The door opened and I stood up. "Sorry to keep everyone waiting," I said, walking around to take my seat behind the massive oak desk. "I had to review the contract details one more time." Isabella stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Sophia's eyes went wide, her hand flying to cover her mouth. "I don't understand," Isabella stammered. You're the owner?" "Emma Thompson, owner and CEO of Prestige Holdings," I said, extending my hand across the desk. "I believe we spoke on the phone this morning." Isabella's face cycled through several shades of red. There must be some mistake. You're just the bride's sister. You drive a Honda. You can't possibly own a $2.8 billion hospitality empire?" I finished. "Actually, I can and do. Prestige Holdings owns the Grandview Estate, along with the Oceanview Resort in Maine, the Metropolitan Conference Center downtown, and 14 other luxury venues across New England." I pulled out a folder and opened it on the desk. "Now, about this $50,000 charge you mentioned. I've reviewed our contract with Ms. Carmichael, and I don't see any provisions for additional lighting or security fees." Isabella's tablet shook in her hands. I was told by my vendor that." "Which vendor would that be?" I asked, my voice still calm but with an edge that made Isabella shrink back in her chair. The lighting company said." "Isabella," I interrupted, "I own the lighting company too. Brilliance Event Lighting has been a subsidiary of Prestige Holdings for 2 years. Same with Elite Security Services. So please enlighten me about these mysterious additional charges." The room was silent except for the ticking of the antique grandfather clock in the corner. Sophia was staring at me like she'd never seen me before, which in a way she hadn't. "The truth is," I continued, "there are no additional charges. There never were. According to my staff, you called this morning attempting to negotiate a personal commission fee with our vendors, claiming the family was wealthy enough to absorb extra costs." Isabella's face went white. "That's not. I would never." I slid a document across the desk. "This is a transcript of your conversation with Marcus this morning, where you suggested we inflate the bill because, quote, desperate families always pay premium prices, and these people are clearly desperate to impress. Isabella stared at the paper, her hands trembling. I can explain. There's more, I said, sliding another document forward. This is an email you sent to your assistant yesterday, discussing how to squeeze every penny out of the Thompson wedding, because the family was too unsophisticated to know better. Sophia gasped. Isabella looked like she might be sick. Now, I said, leaning back in my chair, let's discuss what's going to happen next. Isabella straightened up, apparently trying to salvage some dignity. Look, Miss Thompson, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm one of the most respected wedding planners in the state. I have connections with every major vendor, and I can make or break venues like this with my recommendations. I smiled. Isabella, I don't think you understand your position here. You attempted to defraud my sister. You tried to manipulate my vendors into inflating bills. And you've spent the last 3 weeks treating my family like we were beneath your notice. I was just trying to ensure the wedding met appropriate standards, she said weakly. By telling my sister yesterday that her dress was adequate for a family of your background, and suggesting she consider a cash bar because people like you typically can't afford open bars? Sophia's head snapped toward Isabella. You said that was industry standard advice. And last week, I continued, when you told my parents that they should be grateful their daughter found someone willing to marry into the family, despite knowing David comes from money? Isabella was now openly sweating. I never said. I have recordings, Isabella. This estate has been fully wired for security since I bought it. Every conversation, every meeting, every snide comment about my family's limited budget and social climbing aspirations. I stood up and walked to the window overlooking the gardens. Here's what's going to happen. You're fired, effective immediately. My event team will handle the final details for Saturday's wedding. You can't do this. Isabella protested. I have a contract with the bride. Actually, I said, turning back to face her, according to the contract you signed with my sister, all vendor relationships are subject to venue approval. As the venue owner, I'm exercising my right to remove vendors who don't meet our standards. Isabella turned to Sophia desperately. Sophia, please. This is your wedding. You can't let her destroy everything we've planned. My sister stood up slowly, her voice steady for the first time all afternoon. Everything we've planned? Isabella, you've spent 3 months making me feel like my wedding was an inconvenience to you. You've criticized every choice I've made, questioned every decision, and made me feel like I was lucky you were willing to work with our family at all. I was trying to help you reach for something better, Isabella said weakly. No, Sophia said, you were trying to make yourself feel superior. And now I find out you were planning to steal $50,000 from us? Emma, I want her gone. I nodded to Marcus, who stepped forward. Ms. Martinez, I'll need your vendor access cards and any estate keys you may have. Isabella fumbled in her purse, her hands shaking as she handed over the materials. This will ruin my reputation. I'll never work in this industry again. That's not my problem, I said simply. Though I should mention that I own or have partnerships with most of the major venues in New England. Word travels fast in the hospitality industry. After Isabella left, practically running to her BMW, Sophia and I sat in the quiet office. The afternoon light was streaming through the windows, highlighting the dust motes dancing in the air. Emma, Sophia said finally, I don't understand. How long have you owned this place? 3 years, I said. I bought it the same weekend you and David got engaged. Why didn't you tell me? I walked back to my chair, suddenly feeling tired. Because I wanted you to choose it because you loved it, not because I owned it. And because... I paused, searching for the right words. Because our family has always seen me as the quiet one, the one who doesn't quite measure up. I didn't want your wedding to become about my money. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. Is that why you still drive the Honda? Live in that apartment? Partly, I admitted. But also because I like my privacy. Building this company has been incredible, but it's also complicated. When people know you have money, every relationship becomes transactional. Every friendship is suspect. Every family gathering becomes about what you can provide rather than who you are. But we're your family, Sophia said softly. Yes, and I love you all. But think about it, sophomore. When was the last time Mom and Dad asked about my life without it being connected to what I could do for someone else? When has anyone in our family been curious about my work beyond whether I'm finally making decent money? Sophia looked down at her hands. We thought you were struggling. You never talk about work, never spend money on yourself, never seem to have much. I have everything I need, I said. I've been saving and investing since I was 16. I built this company by being careful, by living below my means, by making smart decisions instead of flashy ones. The apartment I live in? I own the building. The Honda. It's paid off and reliable. I don't need to prove my success to anyone. But Isabella was so horrible to us. She made me feel like we were charity cases. People like Isabella exist everywhere, I said. They judge based on appearances, on what car you drive or how much you spend on clothes. They can't see past their own shallow assumptions. Marcus knocked on the door and entered. Miss Thompson, I have the revised wedding timeline. We've taken over all vendor coordination and everything is on schedule for Saturday. What about the menu changes Isabella mentioned? Sophia asked nervously. There were no menu changes, Marcus said with a smile. Ms. Martinez was apparently planning to upgrade you to our premium package and pocket the difference. Your original choices were perfect. After Marcus left, Sophia and I spent an hour going over the final details. As we talked, I watched my sister transform from the nervous, uncertain woman who'd been sitting in this room an hour ago into the confident, excited bride she should have been all along. Emma, she said as we prepared to leave, I need to ask you something. Anything. The money Mom and Dad have been lending me for wedding expenses, that came from you, didn't it? I didn't answer immediately, which was answer enough. They don't have that kind of money, she continued. Dad's been stressed about retirement savings and Mom keeps talking about needing to work longer than planned. But suddenly they had $20,000 to help with my wedding. Your wedding is important, I said simply. Emma, why do all this and let everyone think you're struggling? I looked around the office at the restored woodwork and carefully chosen antiques, at the windows overlooking gardens where my sister would marry the man she loved in 4 days. Because this is what family should be, I said. Not transactions or obligations or keeping score. Just people who love each other enough to make each other's dreams come true. Sophia hugged me then, crying and laughing at the same time. I can't believe you did all this. Your wedding is going to be perfect, I told her. No stress, no additional charges, no Isabella. Just you and David and everyone who loves you celebrating your happiness. Saturday arrived with perfect spring weather. I wore a simple dress from my closet. Not because I couldn't afford better, but because that's who I was. The woman who chose substance over flash, who built empires quietly, who showed love through actions rather than announcements. The ceremony was everything Sophia had dreamed of. The gardens were perfect, the flowers were stunning, and my sister was radiant as she walked down the aisle toward David, who looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. During the reception, I watched our family celebrating. Mom and Dad were relaxed and happy, not worrying about money for the first time in months. Our aunts and uncles were impressed by the elegance of the venue, and David's family was clearly seeing our family in a new light. Isabella's replacement, a lovely woman named Carmen who I'd worked with on other events, made sure everything ran smoothly. She treated every guest with respect, handled every detail with care, and made Sophia feel like the most important bride in the world. Near the end of the evening, my father approached me as I stood on the terrace overlooking the gardens. Emma, he said, I need to thank you. For what, Dad? Sophia told me what happened with the wedding planner. About how you handled everything. He paused, looking out over the estate. She also told me about the money we've been giving her. Money that came from you. I didn't say anything, just waited. I don't understand how you did it, he continued. How you built something like this without any of us knowing. But I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry we never asked the right questions. You don't need to apologize, Dad. Yes, I do. He turned to face me. We made assumptions about your life, about your choices. We saw what we expected to see instead of looking for who you really are. Later that night, after the last guest had left and the cleanup was complete, Sophia found me in the estate's kitchen, sharing a quiet drink with Marcus and Carmen. There she is, Marcus said, raising his glass. The woman who threw the wedding of the year and managed to stay completely anonymous while doing it. Not completely anonymous, Carmen added with a grin. Half the guests spent the evening asking who owned this incredible place. What did you tell them? I asked. That the owner values privacy above all else, Carmen said. Though I think a few people are starting to put pieces together. Sophia sat down beside me. Emma, I have something for you. She handed me a small wrapped box. Inside was a silver picture frame containing a photo from earlier that day. Not a formal wedding portrait, but a candid shot someone had taken of Sophia and me laughing together in the garden. I wanted you to have this, she said. Because today was perfect, but not because of the venue or the flowers or the food. It was perfect because you were there, making sure I felt loved and supported and valued. I looked at the photo, at my sister's radiant smile and my own genuine happiness. Thank you. No, Sophia said. Thank you. For everything you've done, everything you've built, everything you've given our family. But mostly, thank you for showing me that success isn't about impressing people or proving you belong somewhere. It's about having the power to make the people you love happy. As I drove home that night in my reliable Honda, I thought about Isabella's assumptions, about my family's misconceptions, about the choices I'd made over the years. I'd built an empire while letting people underestimate me, had accumulated wealth while living modestly, had gained power while remaining invisible. Some people might call it deception. I called it strategy. The next morning, I woke up in my modest apartment, made coffee in my simple kitchen, and prepared for another week of running my hospitality empire from behind the scenes. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Thank you for the most perfect day of my life. I love you. I smiled and got back to work. Because this was who I was. Emma Thompson, the quiet sister who drove an old Honda and lived below her means. Who also happened to own a $2.8 billion empire and had just thrown the wedding of the year. Some secrets were worth keeping.